experience with how to engage the rural folks, how to get people out as precinct officers, how to get people out to vote. And one thing I want you to do right now, because we all are busy, we are trying to survive, if you can take out your phone, or however you write down where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, mark down May 13th. You're supposed to be at the polls. Life gets busy, you will look up, it'll be 7 o'clock, and you'll be like, dang it, I didn't vote. And we have to not do that anymore. And if you can, bring 2 or 3 friends with you. And this is what we'll have to do with each other until we get those precincts built up, until we get those county parties trained up to how to get people involved. And that's what I'm committed to do as vice chair. Vice chair has been kind of a position that's been in the background. But if you look at the bylaws of the Oklahoma Democratic Party, they are tasked with training. That's what I do in my day-to-day job. I train doctors of how to use their programs. And let me tell you, it's a chore. They do not like to be trained. But you've got to do what you've got to do. And we are at that point where we all need to band together and get those people out and actually get them engaged in voting.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk just a little bit more. Yes. So we're going to talk a little bit more about our strategy. So how are we going to influence more people to come out and vote? There's 77 counties in Oklahoma. There's hundreds of communities. What our plan is we're going to go to all 77 counties. We're going to go to hundreds of communities throughout all of Oklahoma, and we're going to do rallies at the square, what we call the public square events. We're going to do public square events, and we're going to do everything we can to get people out to vote, participate, be excited. You know, one of the things I hear all the time is, you know, something about my vote doesn't count or something like that. That is so wrong. It's so antiquated. It doesn't make any sense. So I want to talk to you guys just a minute. When you go to the football games, how many here go to OU football games? How many people here go to OSU football games? How many people go to Tulsa? How many people go to Tahlequah and watch the football games in Tahlequah?
There you go.
Yes. Remember this, when your team is playing and you're cheering at the top of your lungs, you can't hear you. Our party infrastructure development. That's what I've just been talking to you about. We've got to grow the party, and we've got to get excited about growing the party, and we've got to be excited about being Democrats. Because I'll tell you what, let me ask you a question. How many people here are sick and tired of letting the Republicans define who you are? Me too. I'm sick and tired of it. I want to be in front of the news media, and I want to be telling the news media who we are and what we represent, because that is the goal of the Democratic Party, is to be the party of the people. And that's why I want to get out there and I want to be in front of them. The next thing that we're going to talk about, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy, is we're going to talk about electing Democrats. Well, she just talked about that. So let's go to the next one, communication.
Communication and outreach. I think it became very clear during the last presidential election that the word of everyone, all of the Democrats, were that we had a communication and messaging issue. So what we want to do is we want to fix that here in Oklahoma, because we can do what's closest to us. One thing that we're talking about doing is having a war room to fight back against disinformation and define our party's message. So those are those things that come up day to day. But on top of that, we want to have a messaging strategy, a messaging calendar of things that we talk about on a schedule. And what we want to do is have all of those messages come from all of the county parties so that we are providing a unified message to all of our 77 counties at the same time.
So the next thing we're going to talk a little bit about is reestablishing our reputation as a party. We've taken a hit, guys, and I'm tired of it. I'm sick and tired of it. We are, by going out and doing these public square events and doing these rallies at the square and getting people involved, if nothing more than just, you know, cutting up watermelon in the summertime, having pie contests in the fall, or in the wintertime having a parade, or in the deep part of the summer having an ice cream social. We've got to do things that get people together. The way that you grow the party is to grow together. You don't grow together by growing apart or being away from one another. We've got to get back together, and we've got to do this in person. We've got to support the unions. I spent 43 years as a union member. I spent 11 years as a local chairman. A little bit about myself. I'm a locomotive engineer. How many people here like trains? Who doesn't like trains, right? I worked for 43 years as a locomotive engineer. When I was promoted, let me start off. When I started working for the railroad, I was only 18 years old. When I was promoted as a locomotive engineer, I was 19 years old. I was one of the youngest locomotive engineers for a Class 1 railroad in United States history. My father was a locomotive engineer. It took him 25 years to be promoted. It took my grandfather 30 years to be promoted as a locomotive engineer. It took me 18 months. I was driven, folks. I was driven for success, and I'm driven just today as much as I was then to try to get this party to do something as successful as what I've been able to do in the past. And I know that I have that capability, and I know that you, as the people in this town, in Cherokee County, you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. We've got to grow the party, and we've got to be excited. I remember when this county was one of the blue dots that actually sustained this state. We've got to get back to doing that. But you talked about empowering federations.
So as Kevin mentioned, he has a vast background in the union. I do not. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have people who are speaking for everyone. And part of this is empowering our federations and our associations. We have several federations right now that are in place in the ODP. If you hear from them, great. Some of them, you know that they're there. Are they producing anything? We don't know. So what we want to do is make sure that we give those federations the power and the voice to be the voice for that particular community. Because Kevin and I cannot speak for everyone. So we need to make sure that those federations have a voice and they can influence all of our Democratic Party. And what this does is it allows the ODP to refocus on the bare bones. So if we're talking about the bones of the house, we gotta make sure that the precincts are up to date. We gotta make sure that the counties are trained up. We gotta make sure that our district officers are doing what they're assigned to do. We've gotta make sure that our central committee is doing what they're supposed to do. We've gotta make sure that our state chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer are all doing what they're supposed to do, because we cannot do this alone.
The last thing we want to do is we want to build a conduit between the party and our elected officials. We need to have more influence and be able to have more say on some of the legislation that we drive their direction. We got to make sure that our goals align with one another. Some of the things that we're seeing out of our legislature, they're doing everything they can to swim and keep their head above water right now. That's basically what they're doing. When we grow our party, we're going to have to grow our legislative representatives as well. And when we grow our legislative representatives, we got to give them a vision on what we, the people in the Democratic Party, want. And that's going to be so important for us to be able to do that. And again, we're going to do that by having a conduit to help our senators and help our legislators. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is permanent campaign. Think about this, folks. This goes back to the money that I was talking about earlier. When we're not campaigning for a candidate, we need to be campaigning for the party. We've got to do everything we can to grow the party. That means going to a person who has been disenfranchised and does not participate anymore because they've been disillusioned and lost hope in their Democratic Party. We got to draw them back in. We got to get them back to the point where they trust us and that they understand the image of the Democratic Party is something that they value. That's something I don't think that they have right now. And we've got to grow that. We've got to change that. We're going to do that. And you can tell by my voice that I'm so excited to be able to do that. And I'm really trying to get all of you as excited as I am, because guess what? The Democratic Party of Oklahoma is not dead. We are a force to be reckoned with. All we have to do is stand up together and fight together. That's what we need to do together. And again, I talked about my leadership pledge. I'm not gonna bury you in that, but again, I want you guys to understand, that is a total commitment by me. I'm not gonna sit back here and say, all right, I'm not gonna take any money and then not do anything. Folks, I didn't drive all the way up here to do nothing. I drove all the way up here because I want change, and I want that change now. I'm tired. I'm sick and tired of these other people telling us who we are and defining who the Democratic Party is. And we're going to change that. We're going to change it rapidly. We're going to be the voice that's out in front of instead of the voice that's back behind. That is my promise and my pledge to you. And then for conclusion.
So we're here asking for your support at the state convention. I see that your county convention is this weekend. If you are a delegate or a voting member at that convention, we are asking for a vote from you on June 28th and 29th at the state convention. We believe that we have this 7-point plan. We have a strategic plan behind it, and essentially what we need to do is slot names into the projects. So we are coming ready to go day one. We are committed to working with the ODP staff to get this mission and this vision in place and turning this party around.
My question for you is, how would we better spend the $36,000 that was spent on a union busting law firm?
You know, that's a hypothetical that, because I was not involved, I can't really talk about it, but I will talk hypothetical with you. If I would have been chair at the time that incident occurred, we wouldn't be facing that situation right now. I can give you that promise right now. That would have never happened because we would have abided by the union contract and we would have went through the disciplinary process, whatever that was. That is what we would have done.